Imagine waking up locked inside a windowless, sterile bunker, only to realize that your captor isn't just one dangerous man, but a rotating wheel of 23 completely distinct personalities living inside a single physical body. Welcome to a dark psychological labyrinth where a simple door lock is the least of your worries, and the ultimate, supernatural predator is about to take absolute control of the light. The nightmare begins in broad daylight, right in the middle of a mundane, crowded fast food parking lot. Casey, a quiet, hyper-observant high school outsider, finds herself awkwardly hitching a ride home with her popular classmate Claire and Claire's best friend, Marcia, after a birthday party. The atmosphere inside the car is filled with standard, trivial teenage chatter, a sharp contrast to the horror that is about to unfold. Suddenly, Claire's father, who was supposed to drive them and was putting groceries in the trunk, gets abruptly knocked out cold off-screen. Before the girls can even process the sudden, heavy silence, the driver's side door swings open. A strange, unfamiliar man slides into the driver's seat. He moves with an eerie, mechanical, clinical precision, fastening his seatbelt and adjusting the rearview mirror without uttering a single word. Panic instantly paralyzes the back seat. The realization that something is horribly wrong hits them like a tidal wave. Claire and Marcia begin to scream, desperately scrambling to open the doors, but the stranger calmly reaches over and sprays a chemical anesthetic agent into the air, knocking them out one by one. Casey, sizing up the threat with a strange, calculated stillness, hesitates just a second too long, trying to find an escape route, before the chemical darkness takes her as well. When the girls finally blink their eyes open, the bright, familiar, predictable world is completely gone. They are trapped in a sterile, underground room characterized by exposed pipes, harsh fluorescent lighting, and cheap, neatly made beds. The air is thick, and the heavy metal door is sealed tight from the outside, offering absolutely no hope of a quick escape. Every single footstep echoing in the concrete hallway outside sounds like a ticking time bomb, sending shivers down their spines. When the door finally clicks open, the man who abducted them walks in. But he doesn't look like a frantic, unhinged, emotional criminal. Instead, he is dressed in a meticulously neat, spotless outfit, carrying a vacuum cleaner, and immediately begins obsessively fussing over the placement of things in the room. This is Dennis. He is a severe germaphobe, hyper-organized, and completely detached from the human gravity of what he has done. He looks at the terrified, trembling girls not with anger or malice, but with a cold, functional, terrifyingly detached gaze. Claire and Marcia try to negotiate, to scream for help, and to fight back, but Dennis easily, effortlessly overpowers them, physically separating Claire from the others to assert absolute dominance and break their collective spirit. But just when the girls think they are dealing with a standard, cold-blooded kidnapper, the door opens again hours later, and the entire physical and psychological reality of their captivity dramatically shifts. The exact same man walks into the room, but his physical posture is entirely different, his shoulders dropped and his movements softer. He is wearing a long skirt, a patterned top, and speaks with a high-pitched, lisping, overly polite feminine voice. This is Patricia. She acts like a maternal, deeply caring, yet utterly unsettling homemaker. She cleans up the space, speaks softly to them, and warns the girls that they must behave if they want to stay safe. The contrast is dizzying and psychologically draining for the captives. Casey, watching silently from the corner, starts to connect the dots. They aren't dealing with one man, but a fractured mind. Soon after, the door swings open yet again, and out steps a 9-year-old boy named Hedwig. He lisps heavily, talks about his favorite techno music, boasts about having a red coat, and mentions a mysterious, ominous entity known as the Horde and an impending force called the Beast. Through her quiet, cautious interactions with Hedwig, Casey discovers a terrifying, unbelievable truth. There are 23 distinct personalities living inside this one physical frame, all constantly competing for what they call the light, the ultimate right to control the body's actions. Meanwhile, the narrative shifts to the outside world, focusing heavily on Dr. Karen Fletcher, an elderly, deeply empathetic, and highly respected psychiatrist who specializes in dissociative identity disorder. She views her patients not as broken, defective individuals, but as unique human beings who have unlocked hidden, extraordinary potentials of the human mind through surviving extreme trauma. Her star patient is Kevin Wendell Crumb, a man who suffered horrific, unimaginable physical abuse at the hands of his mother as a child. To protect his fragile core, Kevin's mind shattered into fragments, creating the 23 personalities to cope with the immense pain and fear. Dr. Fletcher sits across from him in her cozy, book-lined office, but she isn't talking to Kevin. She is talking to Barry, a flamboyant, highly talented fashion designer who usually dominates the light, acts as the leader of the personalities, and keeps the internal peace. But Dr. Fletcher is incredibly sharp. She notices subtle shifts in his posture, a slight, unnatural change in the inflection of his voice, and a sudden defensiveness. Furthermore, she has been receiving urgent, late-night emails from Kevin's personal account, begging for help. When she confronts Barry, she strongly suspects that someone else is pretending to be him, wearing his traits like a mask. Someone much darker. Dennis and Patricia have staged an internal coup, forcefully taking over the light and pushing the benign, gentle personalities deep into the shadows of Kevin's mind. Back in the subterranean bunker, the psychological warfare and tension intensify to a suffocating degree. Claire and Marcia are desperate, their adrenaline driving them to make reckless, impulsive choices born of pure terror. They try to ambush Dennis through a ceiling air duct in a frantic bid for freedom, but their chaotic, loud attempts only trigger his dangerous obsession with order, cleanliness, and absolute control. He punishes them severely, dragging them out and locking them away in separate, completely isolated concrete storage rooms, leaving Casey entirely alone. Casey, however, plays a completely different, highly calculated psychological game. She remembers the harsh, brutal lessons of her own dark past. Through flashbacks, we see a young Casey out on a hunting trip in the isolated woods with her father and her abusive uncle. She learned early that survival means understanding the predator, blending into the background, and waiting with patience for the right moment to strike. Instead of fighting blindly, Casey adopts the strategy of radical empathy. She interacts gently with Hedwig, playing into his childlike innocence. She goes to his bedroom, listens to his favorite music, and carefully convinces him to show her his secret window to the outside world. But the window turns out to be a cruel joke. A drawing of a window taped tightly to a solid concrete wall. Even in his innocence, Hedwig is an absolute prison guard. The suspense reaches a dangerous boiling point when Dr. Fletcher decides to personally visit Kevin's registered residence, hidden deep within the dark maintenance corridors of the Philadelphia Zoo. There, she meets Dennis, who is still desperately pretending to be Barry. But Fletcher is far too smart to be fooled. She demands to see the basement corridors, aggressively pushing past professional boundaries to find the truth. As she explores the dim, labyrinthine hallways, she hears a faint, desperate cry for help. It's Claire, locked away in a side room. Before Fletcher can react, Dennis realizes that his entire game is up. He overpowers and drugs Fletcher with a chemical rag, leaving her unconscious on the floor, but not before she manages, with her fading strength, to scribble down Kevin's full, real birth name on a piece of scrap paper, leaving a hidden lifeline. The atmosphere in the bunker turns apocalyptic. The 24th personality, the mythological entity that the dark identities have been prophesying, is finally ready to take the light. This is the Beast. It is a physical manifestation of pure primal power, fueled by decades of suppressed human suffering and rage. Dennis walks calmly to an isolated train station platform and boards an empty, dark train car. There, the horrific transformation occurs. The human flesh seems to visually harden, muscles violently tighten, veins bulge, and the physical posture becomes entirely animalistic. The beast possesses supernatural strength, the ability to climb walls, and skin so tough it can deflect sharp blades. He rushes back to the underground complex, fully consumed by a dark, twisted philosophy. Only those who have suffered deeply are pure. The rest of the world is untouched, ignorant, and deserves to be entirely consumed. Casey manages to break free from her room using a small tool, navigating the terrifying maze. She discovers the gruesome, tragic fate of Claire and Marcia, who were brutally slaughtered by the beast. Horror and grief take over her mind as she stumbles upon the lifeless body of Dr. Fletcher, but she notices and grabs the crumpled note with Kevin's full name written on it. Suddenly, the monstrous figure of the beast emerges from the deep shadows. He chases Casey through the narrow concrete tunnels, moving with terrifying, inhuman speed. Cornered and desperate, Casey screams out his real birth name with all the strength in her lungs, Kevin Wendell Crumb. Kevin Wendell Crumb. The effect of the real name is instantaneous and violent. The dominant, monstrous personalities are forcefully yanked back from the light by the mention of the core identity. For the first time in many years, the real, terrified Kevin emerges to the surface of the body. He blinks, utterly disoriented, and slowly realizes the horrific, bloody atrocities his physical body has committed while he was asleep. He looks at Casey, tears streaming down his face, and begs her to kill him to end the nightmare, pointing to a loaded shotgun hidden in the maintenance room. But the psychological respite is tragically short. The other aggressive personalities violently fight back for control. Patricia, Dennis, and Hedwig rapidly take turns seizing control of the vocal cords, shouting down Kevin's weak consciousness, wrestling for the light until finally, the beast roars back to life with a furious vengeance. Casey grabs the heavy shotgun, loads it, and runs for her life, barricading herself inside a cage-like enclosure with heavy iron bars. The beast corners her easily, bending the thick iron bars with his bare hands like they are wet cardboard. He lunges through the gap to destroy her, and Casey fires a direct blast. The heavy blast hits him square in the chest, but it barely slows his momentum. He shrugs off the devastating buckshot, his supernatural, dense flesh absorbing the damage. He reaches through, grabbing her tightly, ready to rip her apart. But as he tears at her clothes in the struggle, he stops dead in his tracks. His eyes widen. He sees the thick, crisscrossing scars covering Casey's chest and arms, the permanent, undeniable physical marks of the horrific abuse she endured at the hands of her uncle for years. The beast stares intently at the scars, his expression shifting rapidly from blind rage to a bizarre, reverent awe. He realizes she isn't one of the ordinary, untouched people he despises. He looks deeply into her terrified eyes and whispers softly that she is pure, because she has known true pain and has survived. He lets her go, dropping her to the floor, and retreats silently into the pitch-black darkness of the tunnels, leaving her alive amidst the wreckage. As dawn breaks over the city, the police flood the zoo grounds. Casey is rescued from the subterranean lair, wrapped tightly in a blanket, and placed in the back of a squad car. A female officer approaches her gently, informing her that her legal guardian, her abusive uncle, is outside the gates waiting to take her home. Casey sits in the back of the car, the profound trauma settling deep into her bones. But something inside her soul has fundamentally changed. The broken, passive girl who hid from the world and accepted her abuse is gone. She looks out the window directly at her uncle, her gaze hardening into cold, unbreakable steel, ready to face her real-world monster with the exact same fierce, primal survival instinct that kept her alive underground. Meanwhile, in a completely hidden, temporary hideout somewhere in the city, the physical body of Kevin stands before a cracked mirror. Dennis, Patricia, and Hedwig speak to each other fluidly through the glass, completely marveling at the incredible, godlike power of the beast and realizing that the outside world now knows exactly what they are capable of doing. Standing there, adjusting to their new reality, they utter the profound truth that defines their existence. We are what we believe we are. They are no longer hiding timidly in the shadows. They are fully ready to show the world the true, devastating power of the broken. This leaves us with a chilling question. Is trauma just a crack in the human mind, or is it a dark doorway to an evolutionary superpower? If you were in Casey's shoes, would you have the steel to survive a monster by proving you're broken too? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.